While educators and parents are opting out of testing in the United States, parents in countries like India, Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, and Nigeria are saying we need more by taking testing into their own hands with citizen-led assessments.
Pratham thought that there should be a simple assessment that is to be done by the citizens so that they understand what learning is and they measure it themselves and in the process empower themselves to demand for better education if they find any gaps there. So it started in 2005, the ASER initiative, Annual Status of Education Report. It actually has another meaning. ASER in Hindi means impact. So it has a dual meaning to its name. And then from 2005, it has been done each year.
These citizen-led assessments were initially not an easy sell, as enrollment rates in many of these countries had risen significantly for the first time, and the idea that children were now in school but not learning came as a bit of a shock.
Earlier on, it was very difficult because people assumed that children were learning because they were going to school. So there was no one questioned that whether learning is possible or not, and learning was such a nuanced construct that people didn't know how to address the question. The question was not raised, and what was the answer, people didn't know. So just to build that environment that we need to realize that children are going to school but they are not learning, and then the second level is what type of assessment to use, which is very simple to do and not really a detailed analysis which will not really work in our settings, in the African settings.
And after 10 years, parents and volunteers have discovered that though enrollment rates were high in schools, now around 90%, and schools are more accessible, in most cases, little to no learning has been taking place. What has been the response from parents about this?
We've seen mixed response. We've seen parents getting disheartened sometimes when they see that children can't read. We see excitement when children are able to read. We sometimes see anger with the system sometimes. They immediately start blaming the school and the teacher for that village. So mixed reactions. But the main thing is that it starts at least a debate.
However, now that inputs like schools are in place and outputs like reading ability have been assessed, scholars in places like Teachers College and Columbia University are saying it's time for a diagnosis to be conducted in order for any real policy changes to be implemented.
That if you really want, so this is great for diagnosing kind of prevalence, to say kids can't read or kids aren't doing this, but it's not collecting maybe the right data for you to know how to change it. Right? When I think of what would I want to know, I would want to know, are some schools more effective than other schools? Are there some teaching strategies or pedagogical practices that are different than others? Just
a lot of data being collected in Teams and PISA. However, we have very little policy solutions from this data. Because if it's not connected to where learning is actually happening, schools and classrooms, teachers and principals, then you have little to say from this data.
But for NGOs, the problem lies in exactly that. Some state officials in places like India have issued barriers to them conducting surveys in the classroom, making it hard to collect the data needed to understand why learning is not taking place.
Government usually doesn't interfere much. Actually, they would interfere more if we go in the schools. Because in states like Maharashtra, we have seen it's a central state, that for that visit in the school, you don't get permission because the government has said that don't allow them in the schools.
This barrier, in addition to funding, needed to go into schools with a possibly more complex survey, points to limitations in the citizen-led assessment model. However, the urgency to find a solution stays the same. Reporting from New York City, Jenny Abamu, IENN.